Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me in another of my wonderful interviews. It's going to be wonderful today because you may be one of those people who were driving in your car and you saw people with yellow boards perhaps, and some of them may have thrust a newspaper into your hand and you went, hang on a minute, this isn't the Times or the Sun or any of that sort of nonsense. This is something that's actually telling me the truth, something that's got real news in it, something that's warning me about things that might well be happening. Or perhaps you've gone to an event and likewise picked up one of these newspapers and thought, well, it's in black and white, must be true, and it is most likely to be true if it's the Light newspaper. Because if you are one of those people that does read the Light paper, you may be aware that we're up to issue 49. Issue 50 is imminent. And to celebrate that fact, I have some of the team who produce that paper and distribute that paper and contribute to that paper and make it all happen. So let's first of all go to the chap who I've had on before some time ago, very kindly put me in the paper himself, and that is Darren from The Light. Hello, Darren.
Hi, Richard. How you doing? Thanks for having us
Very
on.
well. It's lovely to see you, and congratulations must be said on the 50th edition, which is, when is that coming out?
It should be hitting the first distributors around now. It's been printed and transported, so everybody should be getting hold of it, and then it'll be obviously given out roundabouts and everywhere else over the next week or so.
Fantastic. Well, we'll come and talk about perhaps what we're likely to see in it in a minute. Let's just introduce our other contributors as well. We have Graham in Northern Ireland. Hello, Graham.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and it's lovely to see you out there. It's great to know that the paper is going around in Northern Ireland. How is it received over there?
Yeah, it's received with interest. We're similar to the UK. They locked us down in the similar fashion, and that's when
Yes.
I got involved in the protests and basically wanted to bring the Light newspaper in as much as possible because people need to know that there's an alternative narrative. That the narrative we're hearing is false and fake.
Yes.
So yeah, it gets a good reception. Certainly.
Excellent. Oh, that's grand. And down in, I'm just trying to think the county, is it Somerset, Stroud, is
Gloucestershire.
Richard.
Gloucestershire.
Gloucestershire, I beg your pardon. There we go. My geography. I go down that part quite regularly, but you cross the borders all the time. Here we go. You've got your UK column hat on.
I'm trying to get my UK column hat so people can see the logo. Anyway, I've completely fouled that up. Anyway,
You have there a
exclusive. I have an
copy of the Light.
exclusive. We don't
Ah,
have exclusives in the Light, but this is the exclusive. This is number 50.
can you hold it across your face?
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, there we go. That's
There you go.
that. Oh,
Yeah. And it's
hang on a minute. There it is.
yeah.
Illusion of freedom. Is
Illusion of
that's the
freedom.
headline?
Tyranny effective when disguised as democracy by a character called Darren Smith. And it's very good, of course. Always is. Yeah.
Always is. So let me just go back. Thank you, Richard. So let's just go back to Darren first of all. Darren, 50th edition. Did you ever think that we would get that far with a newspaper which is obviously controversial to a number of people, but absolutely the lifeblood of real news?
Obviously not. With no experience, previous experience in publishing, and just being an activist, a musician. We were organising coaches down to London, for the big protests to help swell those numbers, and then we started doing leaflets and stickers and what have you. And then the idea came up to do a newspaper, which was such a big mountain to think about. It's like,
Yeah.
but it's one of those things that you went, it'd be amazing if we did it. Well, let's have a go. You know what I mean? Because there's not that much to lose apart from egg on your face saying, yeah, we're going to do a paper and then not doing it. With about 2 weeks to go, so we're moving towards the first launch date. With about 2 weeks to go, there was a team of us, and the other guys left for whatever reason. It's turned out absolutely brilliant because it means there's no committee and what have you. And obviously, 50 issues down the line, people still love it, so we're still getting something right. But yeah, I mean, it left me really scrambling in that last week. We're up to the print on Friday, and to get the money, to get the paper together, to just organise everything. There was no distribution network, as it were. But I thought it was just really important to get the first one out. Now, once we've done that, because I went to the protest in Trafalgar Square August the 29th, and we're telling people we're going to do a paper, get involved, whatever. And then by the September the 26th, massive rally at Trafalgar Square. It was 2020, wasn't it? With the one that I sang at. I was able to, just before I sang, I hold up the first copy of the Light newspaper. So, it was a brilliant achievement. And the thing is, once you'd made it a physical thing, once you'd actually produced it, or once we produced it, lots of people just came up. I'll help you do this. I'll help you do that. Let me do this for you. Let me do that for you. And every one of that team is still in place.
It must. Sorry, I was going to say it must help, and it must carry weight because it is in a newspaper format, as in it's printed. It's not digital, and that anybody could produce 10 minutes. It must carry a certain level of authority because of the fact that in the consumer's mind, it is the same as any other newspaper, except it's giving real news as opposed to very biased news from billionaires.
Yeah, it costs money. It clearly costs money to produce, a professional looking paper. It costs nothing to do a blog online or to start a website, or very little money to start a website. So, the other thing is obviously as well as getting the information out, as well as giving people, the news that we all get. Everybody's echo chambers online. So what we do is we share the news that you all get on your YouTube feeds and your social media feeds, because they lock you in with other people that are awake, so you can't reach anybody that's not. So what we do is collate all that. People write, all the rest of it. We put that together, and then we can take it right out to the public. If I'd thought about it before, it might have been even more daunting, but it just turned out that the stars aligned. God blessed us, and like I say, the team that we've got from both the core team that helped produce the paper and do the advertising and do the distribution and the design, all the rest of it. But there's also hundreds and thousands of distributors across the country, people that actually stand at traffic lights and hand out the papers. The fact that they still believe in it, again, is a testament to our integrity and our being on the right track, because it's not always easy. You can what have you, but the point is that the paper's for everybody. We make it a very, very interesting read every month, and that's why we can still we'll hopefully go for another 50 more.
Yes, well, let's hope so, because people do love it, as you say. So, Graham, there in Northern Ireland, what was it like when you first started handing out the papers or trying to get people to take it? Was there instant success with people, or was there a much harder sell, as it were? Not that it's necessarily being sold when you're handing it over.
Yeah, I think it was. I was so keen to bring it in because of the information, and it was so good. I think at the beginning, a lot of people, because of the lockdown, I think it helped people. They were interested in knowing about what was going on. At the time of the restrictions, you remember all the things that were wrong. I've talked to school kids. A lot of the rules don't even make sense, and people know that. Like, if you have a mask and if you sit down, you have the mask on. If you stand up to the door, you can take it off. Now, when the rules don't make sense, people stop thinking about them, you see, but they know something's wrong. So they've got this kind of cognitive dissonance going on. Do we just obey a rule, or do we try and work out and use our common sense and logic? I'm always hoping they'll use their common sense and logic. So there was I think it was very divided community. There was those that were understanding there was something wrong. There were those that were very strictly thinking this is a serious issue. You're going to kill people. You're going to kill my granny. You're going to kill your own granny. And I think looking back at it, there was a certain kickback from some people. We definitely don't want anything to do with that. But the same people, a lot of them have completely changed their tune. There are some heartbreaking stories that that I know of. And one of them I was writing about, I heard it from a hairdresser. I think some of the big purveyors of truth Forget about the mainstream news. If you go to your hairdresser, your taxi driver, you'll get a lot more truth and information from them. They seem to be on the ground talking to people, you know.
Yes.
I
Yes.
do remember one story now of when I was interviewing this hair or talking to the hairdresser. It became an interview, um, but it was a lady whose mum was just coming out of hospital, um, and she had had a stroke, and also it transpired she also had cancer from years ago. But this same lady had been so strict that she wouldn't let people into the house without a vaccine, and she had
Gosh.
been one of the people who was really, serious about this.
Mm.
Unfortunately, the same lady, her cancer of 10 years that had been in remission, it came back. And on top of that, then she had a stroke. Now
Blimey.
her understanding is completely changed. And she says she'll never go near these people again. She'll never take another
Mm.
or encourage them. But these stories are heartbreaking, when you
Yes.
realize the effect it has on people. But it was definitely very polarized, and the government deliberately seemed to have divided or been divisive in the messaging to its people.
Yeah, no, and this is the importance of having a journal like the Light to be able to publish something that you would not get anywhere else. I mean, stories that have an alternative view of something that's happening to everyone. Richard in Stroud, I wanted to ask you if you had any similar problems with distributing the paper down south, and also how do you find the stories? Because the stories are so eclectic, and they hit the right mark at the right time.
Well, it's funny you should say that, Richard, that last remark you made, because a bit earlier when Daz was talking, I had the image of a wave, of actually catching a wave. And those of us who've been involved in writing and publishing and campaigning for 30, 40 years, which I have been, you just know that sometimes the moment is just right to actually catch a wave, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes
Right.
you can have a brilliant product, the world's best product, but if the wave isn't there to catch, it will tank.
Yeah.
But clearly the Light caught a wave at the right moment. People were hungry for it, and they still are hungry for it. I got a little story to tell. I've just been on the high street in Stroud handing the paper out. When we finished, I'll be out there again. And one of our friends came up this morning and said, "Oh, the Light, the best newspaper in the world." The crucial thing is he absolutely meant it.
Yeah.
There are people out there who only read the Light and who genuinely, and I think rightly, believe that it is one of, if not the best newspaper, certainly in the country, because it it dares to speak truth to power. It does that without it. It hasn't got corporate backers that it has to not upset and keep
Mm.
happy. It's got writers who tell the truth as they see it. That doesn't mean that everyone who reads it is going to agree with everything that's in it. It doesn't mean that everyone that writes for it is going to agree with everything that's in it. But everyone who reads it knows that the people writing in it are writing genuinely from their heart, from their truth, from their love of freedom, and they're doing their best to get to the truth of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, no, and that's the important thing. And it strikes me that on our side of the camp, you can certainly disagree with things, but you don't have to be disagreeable when you disagree. You just say, "Oh, okay, that's a different way of thinking."
Yeah.
Darren,
Sorry.
so,
If I could just answer your first question,
oh, please, yes, please do.
very briefly. There was an enormous divide, schism in Stroud when we first started handing the paper out. We had loads of abuse, we had loads of supporters, and that huge divide was that, like, there was very little in the middle. It was either people were completely for us or they were completely against us. There's a local group called Community Stroud Solidarity District, who we are convinced are bankrolled, who've had a local high profile campaign trying to drive the light out of Stroud. They even got the local member of Parliament then, who was the MP then, to even raise it in the House of Commons.
Wow.
What are you going to do about these anti-vaxxers in Stroud? She said, and they got her to write to the local distributors any way in which they could cease our store being on Stroud High Street. It's all failed completely. We're handing out more newspapers than we have. We're handing out 1,700 papers a month. But the point I wanted to make is that the divide is much less sharp than it was a couple of years ago. 2 years ago, it was absolutely, they're completely for us or they're against us. Now on the high street, there's a much more even spread of views. And I think that's a good sign that more and more people are at least open to the possibility that the light might be saying something really important that they need to look at. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, and I think that's a very good point, because over time it does seem that people are mellowing a bit, that sort of either or and nothing in between, which we saw reflected in Brexit, and then we saw it reflected during the pandemic, and then the so-called medical intervention for the pandemic. But that is really good, and I think that's where the newspaper is really being able to sort of make it a fuzzy edge, if that's the right way of saying it. So Darren, I was going to ask. Oh, I'm getting feedback now suddenly from someone, not quite sure where. Darren, are you there?
I am, yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. I was going to ask you similarly, really, about the pushback. Have you had serious campaigns to sort of stop the paper, and presumably they've all failed, as Richard was just telling us?
Well, yeah, because funny enough, we're not doing anything illegal, or hateful, or inciting violence, or any of the things that the BBC and Wikipedia, accuses of. Unfortunately, that seriously, damages our reputation. But more in the corporate world, look, if somebody's going to go to the BBC and Wikipedia to find out about somebody or about a company or an organisation, then we're not really going to be able to do much business with them anyway, or much association of any kind. So, how it's funny because the Shroud was probably like one of the hotbeds. There's been serious pushback in Glastonbury. If you Google the light, and I mean Google, not a proper search. Obviously, it'll come up with all the local papers where over the last 3 or 4 years, MPs have complained about anti-vax paper being thrust in conspiracy theory paper, etc., etc. So, there's been a fair bit of media pushback. Obviously, famously, Mariana Spring, we did an interview with her, or she did an interview with me. We recorded all 3 hours of it. Obviously, I just sat there and let her, talk nonsense for 3 hours, and then I was very, very polite, and I didn't raise my voice once, and then they came out with inside the hateful, racist, terrible, right-wing, far-right paper with a picture of me, pretty much look like this going. So they've done the media thing. There's someone around to my parents' house. That's a pretty good quote. And again, anybody that thinks this is controlled opposition or what have you, it's too big and professional to be. No, we just have we've got a great team together that happen to do something good and really believe in it. But you read that quote from my dad, and he basically says, "Oh, he's anti-government. He's anti. He thinks there's a cabal of people who are taking over the world, and just a regular northern fella." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's balmy and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? There's no connections there, but. Listen, it's the old adage: any publicity is good publicity. Because if the BBC or whoever it is put out a hit piece on us, or the communists do their hate not hoping it, all that stuff, then those that are curious, those that are, I haven't heard of this way. Is this another anti-establishment thing that they're trying to think let me hold of it? So. those that want to know, those that have got serious enough minds to go, well, let me check that information. I want to actually see the thing itself, not what they say about it. Are going to discover, like we've been saying, a really great paper that a lot of people love. We've got 2,500 monthly subscribers. We send papers across the world, even though obviously there's different papers in different countries. We do 150,000 copies. That's remained steady for a year or so. The height was 300,000. I think in total we've done over 8 million copies of the paper, and I consider it both a record of what's been happening, because obviously the way they do the news and just flood your mind, and it's like you don't remember what happened last week. So it's great to have that anyway, and in newspaper form, because anything online can be wiped out. But also it's 24 flyers, if you like, every month. So whether it's on EMF problems, obviously the jumpy habits, and the bedazzle thing and what have you, we're giving people a broad taste of what any activist would want to tell people, want to let people know about it in as short a form as we possibly can. That's the last thing I'll say in this little bit. It's open. It's by the people for the people. So if you're out there and you want to be a journalist, or you already are a journalist, right? I mean, we have people from the mainstream, writing for us, working for us, in and out. It's open. So if you want to write about something, keep it short and simple, 600 words, 800 words, but email us. On a Word doc form, and we will always consider anybody for anything from anybody, submissions, if it's obviously suitable for the light paper.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. I was going to ask Graham, what are we currently looking at in the paper at the moment? Because obviously the stories must change as more information comes in. What are the sort of 2 or 3 main things that we should be focused on and that we'd find in the light?
Oh, that's a good and interesting question. One of the things is happening currently in Northern Ireland is that we have a new health bill proposal, and this was something that I was completely unaware of until very recently. But it was something that was in this edition of the Light 10 months ago. And
Right.
This also has a guy, I don't know who this guy was, a Richard Forbes there as well, as being interviewed. So it's quite a good edition, isn't it?
Pops up all over the bloody place, that bloke.
Issue 39. But the WHO wants to rule the world. Forced injections, vaccine passports, lockdowns, no scrutiny. And I'm skeptical about these things. I look at it and think, yeah, maybe, I don't have a lot of time to go looking them all up. I want to go out and enjoy life and jump in the seas and climb mountains. But the strange thing being, of course, that in the last month or two, we've discovered the Northern Ireland Health Bill proposals, and this is exactly what they're proposing. All those World Health Organization things that we thought were from the lockdown, it's dead and buried, it's gone. You need to know they're still pushing their little levers, and they're looking to get them in. If somebody in Northern Ireland or hadn't spotted this particular health bill proposal and how severe it was 97 pages long. So
Wow.
The average punter is not going to read that. It's way too long to read. But somebody went through it. There's an infamous page 47. And on the infamous page, if you could have got that far, most of us would have lost the will to live before that page. But when you get there in this vague language, they start to talk about requiring a person to submit to a medical exam. In other words, if they come up, you have to submit to their little medical. Do you remember the last time? And keeping a person in isolation or quarantine. If they say, well, you need to go into isolation, then you need to go into isolation. Everything that was wrong with the last lockdown, it was all in this bill, only they went much further. They were looking for another one there, require a person to vaccinate or to receive another treatment. Further down, there's one that I think is hilarious, that the person attend training or advice sessions on how to reduce the risk. Just imagine they're going to say to you, you need to go for training to how not to spread this illness.
Yes.
It smacks of something that's completely ridiculous, But and they can close businesses. The overreach was so severe. Thankfully, enough people got wind of it, of word of it, and we're able to. There's somebody over here, Melissa Schumai, has put together, with a bit of help, quite a good resistance to it, and it's become broadly known, and they are now, we believe, shelving the plans. But the obvious question, we didn't expect to see this coming through the pipeline, and that's just one instance of the sort of the truth that we're telling that
Yes.
need to be told.
And it was, as you say, it was in the paper months ago.
It was.
Your team and the people and the contributors you're well up there at giving advance warnings to people.
10 months advance warnings at least. Yeah. So there you go. That was accurate.
No, absolutely. Richard, I had a question and it just flew out of my mind there. What do you think that we should be concerned with coming up that might be in the paper?
Well, when you asked the question to Graham, what came to my mind was something that I found myself thinking about last night, which is that for me, it's the same broad issues. I don't think, for me, it's not that there's something new on the horizon that we all suddenly need to be focused on. For me, it's the general issues about the medical system, which I think we need to move beyond mainstream medicine. It's about the schooling system. We need to move beyond the schooling system. Technocracy and the drive to technocracy. These are very broad issues, and
yes,
I think what's really important about the newspaper is it keeps on and keeps on about these issues, and I think that's the way in which we're going to actually win. That we're going to win the argument. We're going to win over.
Drip feed.
Just keep on with the same issues because they aren't actually going to go away. Those who are trying to drive through these agendas are going to keep on trying to find more and more ingenious ways of driving them through, and we have to be one step or three steps ahead of them and call them out all the time. And so that's what I see as being really important about the newspaper, and that's why I'm just delighted to be involved in it.
So you make an interesting point there, because a lot of newspapers use sensationalism to get your attention. But as you say, these issues continue and they're on and on. It must be difficult then as a writer for a newspaper to keep it fresh and to keep it in people's mind and not just go, oh, another article about EMFs or another article about, fluoride in the water or whatever it might be. Does that present a problem, keeping it fresh?
We do occasionally get friends of ours and supporters on the street who say, oh, I've heard it all before and I've stopped kind of reading this stuff. I think that's a job of the editor. And I mean, Daz, I think he mentioned the word earlier, diversity. He does a fantastic job at having a diverse newspaper where even those who are wide awake are always going to find something in there that kind of takes them by surprise. One of them, if I may sort of blow my own trumpet a bit, if that's what I'm doing, is the weekly Pearls of Wisdom column, where we've had Malcolm X, we've had Simone Weil, we're about to have George Carlin, a whole range of different people who've got wonderful wisdom to share. And so just that column each month is gonna be full of wonderful surprises. So I think it's about diversity. It's about always having something that is going to surprise people and is going to delight people, or maybe horrify people. Both are really important, actually. Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's it. You don't want too much doom and gloom to frighten people, and that must be trying, because we know what they're attempting to do in a sweeping way. But if people are too frightened to pick up the paper because they're scared about it, then it sort of defeats the object a bit. Darren, I wanted to...
Can I just follow up on that? I was told just as we started the paper, I did get one day's worth of advice from a lady who was going to do the advertising but never did. But she, I wrote copious notes on stuff. Everything she said basically, because I knew nothing. And one of the most important messages she said is don't make it all about, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're doing that, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. You're going to get to the end of it and just be really depressed. So I made a conscious decision to make sure there were solutions and positivity and good stories, as well as obviously the shocking stories, and they're doing this and they're going to do that and all the rest of it. And like Richard said, I think we get a good balance with that. And I know. See, here's the thing, and I know people, on our side, if you like, people are awake or some aware. They think, oh well, the light's just anti-establishment, or it's just, or it's only for normies. We make the front page for. I keep saying that we're the normal ones. They're insane.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so that the front page is so, because look, people are going to see it. 1 million people are going to see that every month. It doesn't matter how many copies we do. People are going to stand up, drive by, and they're going to see that headline. So I obviously think about that and how that appears. And obviously, if somebody's handing it out, does it look interesting and what have you? But then inside, once you get past the first few pages, which are like for more unaware people, for general public, if you like, there are always solutions. The stories of people getting on with stuff, building businesses, what have you. As Richard gets some great interviews. He does the True Pearls every month, which is brilliant. I thought the Groucho Marx one was one of my favourites. And the centre, obviously we have a centre spread every month, which it could be full of resources. It could be prepping. It could be whatever. It could be just a really nice poster putting things together. What we like to do is connect dots. And that's why we're not just let's not just do flyers. If somebody gets hold of paper, no, I don't think anybody reads it all apart from me to proofread. I've got proofreaders as well. I'll thank them for their amazing job. But you'll be drawn to the stories that you're drawn to. But I do think about obviously all of our team, if you like, all the people that are awake, and make it interesting for them as well. Because obviously, even if you're distributing, it's nice to have a peruse through and see something that you might not have seen. So if you've got back copies hanging around that you haven't distributed and you haven't read them, it's worthwhile. Because the other thing is, like we said, it's a record of what's been happening, and it's amazing. If I just have a look at an issue from 6 months ago, and I forgot about that happened and that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though I'm obviously thinking about it all the time and on the ball, obviously after 50 issues, it's whatever it is, 1,000 articles or something by now.
So, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, when I read it, it gives me ideas to do my monologues or even people to guest on the show. So it follows that other YouTubers on our side of the fence are inspired by it. And so you must be inspiring loads of people, not necessarily YouTubers, but other people who are writing, perhaps even if they're writing to the local, to their local paper for whatever reason, and maybe asking questions or inspiring them to get in touch with their MP and put them on the turf, as it were. So all of that has got to be, so beneficial to start stirring stories up and getting people to talk, even if they're talking in the queue at a supermarket.
I'll say very quickly, it's a virtuous circle. So I get inspired by watching your monologues as well, watching your interviews, watching the UK column, all the other stuff as well that's going on, and then that directs me. Then how it goes. Then it just comes together. By divine movement.
Yes.
Really. I mean, I've got to do the nuts and bolts bit, but it's funny. Again, that first issue, I've got to fill 12 pages. I've no idea how to do that. I knew the arrested Piers Corbyn was going on the front cover because we had that photo.
Right.
So it was the point I wanted to make, because you could do that front page every time basically for 50 issues, and it'd still be valid and worthwhile. Since the first issue, it's not been a problem. Like I say, so many people came out, writers and everybody else, obviously, and now it's got a reputation. It's easy for Richard to approach people and say, "Hey, can we do an interview for the Light Paper?" A lot of people who have realised that the entire world is run by evil people, and everybody's deceived, and who want to come out and write for us.
The other important part of the newspaper, it seems to me, and it doesn't often get talked about because it's more on the sort of commercial side of it, is the advertisers. And I don't know quite what your policy is, but there's very useful companies out there who are trying to offer services and things that would probably not be able to advertise their products in ordinary papers. And so that's a great service. I mean, people who are obviously doing gold or silver and those sort of things, or water filtration and all the things that we hear that, EMF problems, and then the solutions, as you said, there may be a company there. How do you source those, or do they just come forward?
Again, since the first issue, we have not been short of advertisers. In any month, I don't think, it might be one or two, and then I get to advertise my truthwear business or something. The thing is, there are certain people that cannot advertise with us. So basically, mainstream corporations,
Yes.
any of those poison people, banks, etc. I don't, to my knowledge, I don't pay any part of the advertising. I just do the editorial. To my knowledge, we've not been approached by any of those. I'd like to hear if we had, but the answer would be no. If they are, basically dodgy companies. Out for greed and profit, not really out to benefit people. There's nothing wrong with running a company or building a company or starting a company that is purely beneficial. It's win-win for everybody. You know what I mean? You don't have to poison people. You don't have to rip people off. You can actually help them. We all need stuff. We all need products and services. I'd rather get them off awake people that are poison free. And I'm sure. Here's the thing: there's millions of us. There's at least 2-3 million people, 4 million people. And if you think about just healthy products, you don't have to be awake to want healthy products, but the supermarkets are still full of poison. Now, if I had a few £1 million, we'd get some retail going, and get, obviously all the good suppliers, all the organic suppliers and what have you, and offer people an alternative. But I do a newspaper, I do a rock and roll band, we do the Stand in the Light Festival, obviously, which we've just announced for next May. I say this on your show, Richard, because you've got a very wide reach. Hopefully, as an entrepreneur out there, with some money, just wants to do something, go start a retail business for us. Do it for awake. It doesn't have to be necessarily for awake people, but you have just safe products in there, and it'll be a smash.
Absolutely. I mean, we're so aware of that. And on that note, this is open to anybody who would like to comment on it. One of the things that we're worried about at the moment, and I know across the board, is the farming issue, the food security for the future. We've seen that farmers are not able to get the crops in again, so there's going to be problems. We've heard a story yesterday, I think, from a farmer who was claiming that wheat is coming in and it's being pretended that it's come from this country, but it's actually from, I think, Belgium or somewhere else. And so, are you covering any farming stories in the paper? In any of you?
That's possibly. I think you've probably touched on something that as soon as this is over, I'm going to get onto straight away and look for someone to interview. We did do one on biodynamic agriculture a couple of issues ago. We did an interview on that. But I think you're asking. I think what you're asking, Richard, is very important. I think you've touched on something that maybe we need to. I mean, Darren's the person to answer this, obviously, but I think we need to pick up on that. Here in Stroud, we are very active in having conversations with local farmers to see if we can find a way of creating a local sort of system that completely kind of bypasses the supermarkets. And we're having conversations about that. So maybe those are the kind of stories that we need to start to be talking about in the newspaper, perhaps. Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly all these solar panels coming in. I spoke to a guy who's a resident in Lincolnshire, I think it was, 27,000 acres of solar panels going over prime agricultural land. And we're just seeing this up and down the country proposed and being signed off. And it's a huge worry for a lot of people. And the connection between what's in the supermarket and what's grown in the field, I don't think has been properly made by general public. But those of us who are sort of aware of this are thinking, well, no food, no farmers, no food. You know, it's that same old argument. I think Darren said he had a little point on that.
Yeah, we need to interview Mark, the Volahati farmer, I would imagine. We also need anybody out there want to do an article on the solar panel, so what they call solar farms.
Yes,
Solar
you can't farm. How do you farm a solar panel?
You're turning agricultural land into industrial land. Do you have permission
Yes.
for that? You want to do it right out the back here, where luckily the locals are well, you know, the well on. They've been trying for years and years, but as soon as Starmer got elected, 2 days later, two guys came on our line saying, "Oh, can we take pictures for the solar farm?" No, I'm afraid not, and here's why. I was very polite about it, but I gave them about 10 points on, you know, why it's all nonsense and all the rest of it. They're going to keep pushing. They're going to keep pushing all of it. We have to, you know, we have to be on our toes, like I say, you know, and conversations like this happen all the time. You know, so it's like, yeah, we do need to get more farming stories in and let people know, warn people about, you know, they need to be concerned about this. They need to be, you know, they need to be getting active with it and find their local farmers and what have you, and thinking about their food supply for the future. And also we need to support farmers and hopefully get farmers together as well. You know, you read Farmers Weekly and they're all committed to net zero.
Oh.
They really are. No, you guys, your leaders, you know, the guys that make the decisions, you know, your corrupt, you know, union leaders or whoever they are, they're right behind it because they're all brotherhood members. They're all pushing the climate change. Not every farmer, any farmer I've ever spoken to, get absolute bullshit, total nonsense. They all know it. You know, some point out the geoengineering, the chemtrails. You know what I mean? They're as a whole, they're a very awake bunch, but they're still, like everybody else in the world, like most people in the world, concerned about their own welfare, their family's welfare, their own income. So until like Richard said, until we've got a good alternative, you know, and it takes money, it takes time. And I don't think you can do a mass one, but you don't need one. I need to get my food from within 5 square miles or something, 3 square miles, which you can do on a bike when they stop the oil flowing.
Yes, no, absolutely. So let's round up then on this edition that's coming out, that's imminent, the 50th edition. Are you doing anything special on the 50th edition itself, and what other things are we likely to see in it?
Well, Richard can answer that because it's been 2 weeks since I signed it.
All right, Richard,
get the paper out.
Yeah, you've got the paper there.
Well, I am. I'm afraid I've got 4 things in this edition, so I'm feeling a little bit shy about it. It's just got great articles in here. Assisted suicide is something that we've actually got an interview on in here, which obviously has been very much in the news in the last week since Wednesday, and they launched the bill in Parliament, which I think that the government would love to get that one through. So we are very strongly challenging that. There's the centre spread is called Truth Flicks. Whether you can see that. As Darren,
oh, you missed it. Can you just shove it up again? Sorry. Truth Flicks.
Truth Flicks, yes. As Darren said earlier, these centre spreads are wonderful for getting laminated and then actually sort of putting them putting them on a street stall. So here in Stroud, we've got a big table with lots of leaflets and books, and we often get the centre spread laminated because it's just so damn
a good eye catcher. Yeah,
and we have it absolutely, and people come up and look at it and they're interested. Yeah. So there's just, as always, there's a great diversity of things in here, and I've just glanced through it, and I am someone who reads all of it, and I know we've got a lot of supporters who read it all as well. They come and say, I read every word of that paper because it's brilliant. So yeah,
fantastic. And Graham in Northern Ireland, then will you be doing anything particular for the 50th edition?
We'll be giving it out as normal, and I do think that's the key to be doing it. Keep going and keep going. So it's a great number. It's a great achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, I mean, people may not know how long it's been going and think, oh, it's only been going for a year. But when you say, hang on a minute, it's 50 issues,
Yeah.
that's great. And I guess the next big one will be the 100th issue.
We have a group of people who usually give them out the City Hall every single week in Belfast. So they will be active as ever. So
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, that will be fantastic. Well, listen, I mean,
So,
on behalf of...
yeah,
So go on, Richard.
yeah, sorry, can I just dare to make a kind of politically correct comment, which is that I'm just very aware that we're all blokes, but
Yes.
actually there's fantastic women who write for the newspaper. There's fantastic women who right now down on Stroud High Street are handing out the paper, and there's loads of women involved in the paper. So it's not a paper of just blokes. I know
Right.
I'm in danger of being politically correct, but I really wanted to say that actually.
No, and I appreciate you saying that, because it's very easy to sort of to make an assumption like that. And as you say, the better half of humanity also contributes, which is
It's
fantastic.
even worse. It's even worse actually, because some of the writers are even left wingers.
Well, there we go. Nice broad section of all sorts. But if they recognise the truth, then the truth is the truth, is it not?
Right.
And that is it. Well, listen, I know that my viewers, at least I hope my viewers, I don't know them all personally, of course, I'm sure that they read the paper. Perhaps to some of them who tune in for the very first time and say, oh, that sounds really interesting, I've not heard of it. Let me put your website up on the screen here so people can go and... is that on there? I'm not quite sure. No, I don't think I've managed to do it. Hang on. Let me just press that button there. There we go. There it is. You can go to the website. There is issue 49. The 50th one is just about to come up there. You can go and get back issues. The great thing about the website is you can click it and you can read it online and go through it that way. And if you don't want to read online, of course, the best way is to relax with a nice cup of tea, smoke your pipe if you smoke one, and sit there and digest it or read it to your friends. All of those things are available. Gentlemen, it's been an absolute joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us about the 50th edition. I'm sure that lots of people will just not realise that you've got up to that number so quickly. Can't wait for the next 50. But let's hope that the next few ones are saying, well, it's all over, they've all lost, and we can get back to some traditional living, which is what we're all aiming for, pretty much.
Yeah,
but
when there's no need for mass media anymore, then I'll move on to my other job. So I'll just say that the website is thelightpaper.co.uk. You can do everything through that. Whether subscribe, donate, but order something in advance. Obviously contribute articles or whatever else you want to the paper, design, etc. I'll shut up now, Richard. Thank you so much for having us on.
No, and thank you for that. And I'll leave the link in the description, of course. And every now and again, when somebody sends me an edition, if I haven't picked it up out and about, and I do try to sort of flash it up in my shows just to say, oh, by the way, the light has come out, which is what we should all be doing, and then pass it on to a neighbour or something.
Also, Richard, just to say thank you for your fantastic work. We're all great fans of yours. I'm sure you know that. So.
Oh, that's very kind of you. We're all doing our little bit, whatever that may be. So there we are, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you get the 50th edition and enjoy it, and then the 51st, the 52nd, and so on and so on. You've got the score. But thank you so much to Darren, Richard, and Graham. It's been an absolute joy to have you on the show, and I look forward to getting the next copy and having a read myself. I'll be back with more wonderful monologues and, of course, beautiful and very knowledgeable guests. Until next time, from all of us, take care. Bye-bye.